time, get a snack and your favorite drink because those are two of our favorite things. And if you watch our YouTube channel, then I'm sure a lot of this is going to feel very familiar to you. It's going to be us filming a YouTube live, basically, with the added bonus of a Q&A at the end.
Yeah. Yes, live Q&A, which you don't get during YouTube.
That's true.
So
what are we talking about today, Jessica?
today we're going to talk about how to get a literary agent and essentially how we find clients. And I am Jessica Faust.
Oh, yes, I'm James McGowan. We forget this every time we film.
And for those of you who don't know, BookEnds has been around for 20 years, and there are 10 agents at BookEnds. The website is bookendsliterary.com. I assume most of you probably follow at least some faction of us on some social media. But you can go to the website to find out what everybody specifically represents. BookEnds as a team represents everything in all genres, in adult and children's. I always say there is one genre missing, and that is military thriller. It's the only thing that nobody at BookEnds represents. But anything could change.
And poetry.
Poetry, yeah. Although novels and verse we do.
That's true, and I have a poetry client. So what am I talking about?
So today we're going to talk about how to get a literary agent and how we find clients. And in a nutshell, there are 3 basic ways that authors go about getting an agent: querying, in-person pitching, and online pitch events.
Right. And just to chime in, if you are an illustrator, I don't know if there are any illustrators here. There is a 4th way, which is through social media engagement. But I can poke in that little caveat at the end.
Exactly. So we're going to start with querying, right?
Tried and true, the most common method of getting an agent, and probably what everyone is here for our advice on querying.
Yeah, despite all of the different ways to get an agent's attention, conference pitching, online pitch events, and anything else that has ever sort of come up over the years, it always comes down to querying, I would say.
And it's interesting because all of those other methods pop up and everybody gets excited about them and wants to partake in them. But that's just because they've been doing querying. Yeah. And now something new has come up. But querying really is probably the easiest and most efficient way to reach that agent of your dreams. And reach them directly.
Yeah, and I would say 95% of our clients come from querying.
Yeah.
At least. Yeah, and so let's talk about what a query is, what we want to see in a query, and why querying is also what I think the most beneficial of all the ways to pitch your book to an agent.
Yeah, so a query letter, plain and simple, is a cover letter for your book. It's a 3 to 4 paragraph succinct blurb about your book. I can't speak.
There's no editing on this.
Usually we cut this all out. I can't cut it out live. It's a succinct blurb about your book, a quick bio about you, going straight to the editor or agent. It's a professional letter that is meant to really be business forward.
Yeah, so the query is basically it's made up of 3 basic parts. It's your introduction, which is your title, your word count, and your genre. That usually is, in your opening paragraph or so, but I know some people like to put it at the end. Wherever works, most agents prefer it in the opening, but however you want to do that. The second major part is your blurb. Your blurb is also the most important part, and we will go into more details on that. And the third part of the query letter is the bio.
The hardest part. I just wrote my author bio over the weekend, and I was miserable. So I now empathize with every writer in this chat complaining about the bio. It's so hard.
I think with a query bio, my feeling is authors get very nervous about it and frankly overthink it. All I need to know, I don't need to know, I really just need to know a little bit about who you are. If you're writing nonfiction, it's a much bigger deal because then I want to know your platform and what makes you an expert on the subject.
Yeah.
If you're writing fiction, I just want to know anything you have about your writing background, organizations you belong to, conferences you've attended. And if you have no real writing experience, then just tell me how you connect to the book. You know, you're the same job as the protagonist, or you grew up in the same part of the world that the protagonist is from, whatever it is, just a little bit for me to get to know you. That's really all it is.
Right, not your whole life story.
No, a few lines.
So when you have finally, should we talk more about the actual blurb first?
Yeah, let's do the blurb, because I think that's well, it is the most important part. I mean, honestly, it's sometimes the only thing I read in a query letter.
Yeah, I mean, especially because it's the bulk of it, so I don't feel so bad skipping that first line and going straight to the blurb of your book.
No.
But it's the best way to put it is when you're browsing a bookstore and you're reading the inside flap or the back cover copy of a book, that's what your goal to write here is for your book.
Right. So the blurb is, what's the driving narrative of your book? And we go through this a lot at BookEnds because we share our pitches with each other, which is our blurb when we're selling the book. And I am a hacker. I will get into somebody's blurb and I'll go, what's the point of that? What's the point of that? Take that out till they stop sharing it with me.
Yeah.
But ultimately, to me, it's, I just want you to sell me this book. Like, I don't need to know the backstory of the character. I don't need to know all their best friends' names. I just want to know, go on.
Well, you've said it to me many a time when I have written too long a blurb is, I don't need to know the entire story in the book. I just want you to get me to want to read the book.
Yeah, and one of the big questions I ask when everybody's showing me their pitch or their blurb is, why is this really that important? And if you're what you're saying to me is, well, it's important because in the book, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's important to the blurb.
Right, and if somebody asks us that and we have to explain why it's important, that means either you did a bad job at really introducing it, or it's just not as important as we think it is. But every time we read a book or we know a book, the ins and outs of a book, everything is important to us, which is fair.
Right.
But is it important to hooking a reader? It's a mindset shift that you have to make.
Exactly. And what I would say is, take a comp title, which is a competitive title. You know, if you're writing a mystery, go to the mystery bookshelf. If you're writing science fiction, go to the science fiction bookshelf. Pull out a couple books that you want to compare your book to, and really write your book in the same format that those blurbs are written in. That's honestly what I do sometimes.
Yeah, of course, because it's kind of like that pre-made structure. You just got to plug everything into.
Yeah.
And I see a question here from Charles about how long should that be, Jessica?
I don't think a blurb should be more than, honestly, I don't think it should be more than 2 paragraphs, but if you need to do it in 3, you can. Your entire query letter should not be more than 1 typewritten page. So if you're going to write it out in Microsoft Word first before putting it in the email, it should not, it's like a cover letter for a resume. Nobody wants to go on to a second page. Yeah. And the same holds true of that, which means your introductory paragraph, your blurb, your bio, your salutation, all of that.
Well, something to remember too is it's persuasive writing. It's you persuading me to want to read this book, and you don't want too much room for error. So if you're writing a 2-page query, there's a lot of chances that you're going to lose me, and you don't want that ever.
Very much so. To be honest, if you're going into that 3rd paragraph, you're already losing me.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm like, what's the point of this? And, you know, think about it. I've had pitches that I have taken from the author, sort of tweaked a bit, used it to sell the book to the publisher. And I've had publishers take that same thing, tweak it a bit, and that's the back cover copy.
Which is always cool, by the way, especially if we wrote it. It's really cool when it's on the back of a book. I'm just going to put that out there.
But we've written it also. I mean, I just had a client say to me, thank God you wrote that back cover copy, that we had gotten the back cover copy from the publisher, and she and the publisher went going back and forth. And finally she goes, you know, I want to bring Jessica in. And I just took it apart and I went, no. And I rewrote the whole thing, which I had learned from writing so many blurbs. So when you think that this query writing and this blurb writing is just to get an agent, you're wrong. This is, you are going to have an opportunity to work on your cover copy, and having the skill to be able to write that persuasive material about your book helps you make sure that that cover copy is what you want it to be when you're working with the publisher on it.
Right, and I presume all of us are readers here, so we know what we're looking for when we're looking at, well, are we going to buy this book? So what hooks you in? Think about what hooks you in, and how can you kind of put that forward for your own book?
And you know what I'm going to say about the blurb now, right?
No.
What?
I know, I probably
Write it when you first start writing your book.
Yes.
It should not be an extra when you're done. It should be part of your writing process. Because writing that blurb, if you sit down and go, I have this amazing idea, and you write the blurb and you think that is a book everybody wants to read, then that book you're writing needs to fit that blurb. Or if the book changes, you need to go back to the blurb and make sure it's still a book everybody wants to read.
Yeah, and if anybody's in the chat right now thinking that this lady is crazy, I understand. I felt the same way. I tried it for a picture book. It kind of does work. I hate telling her she's right, but here we are. Don't do that.
I did it, and you can't add the lot. There forever.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Well, moving on.
And the real benefit of querying versus the other processes we're going to talk about is that, I mean, for me anyway, I'm a better writer than I am a speaker. So that's why I prefer querying over a verbal conference pitch. But the most important thing is you have the biggest reach. You can't guarantee that every agent logs into a Twitter pitch event. And of course, attending a conference gives you an even smaller number of agents to pitch.
Yep.
You query, you have, when you query, you actually have some form of control of who you're sending it to, how many agents you're reaching. I know it doesn't feel like you do, but you actually do. So it really is the way to get the attention of the largest number of agents.
Right, and just to piggyback off that, it's to get, you're sort of getting their undivided attention too, because, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I don't know if you'll agree. I don't read queries when I don't want to read queries. So when I want to read queries, I'm in there and I'm giving them my full attention and I'm reading them and I'm looking for that next great book. You can never guarantee that I'm on June 26th, tomorrow, I really want to dive into a Twitter pitch. I don't know if I'm going to wake up and feel in the mood for it, or if I have 10 other things that I need to really worry about. Same thing when I go to a conference. I don't know if I'm jet lagged, anything like that. So one of the stresses that I like to make about querying is every time an agent goes into their query inbox, they're actively making that choice to read your query. So they're in a different mindset.
It's sort of like going to a bookstore for us.
Yeah.
We're looking for something exciting to read, and that's when we go into our queries because we want something exciting to read.
Yeah, and just to pick up on this question that I'm seeing here, Catherine, while we're talking about queries, is yes, it is okay to query multiple agents at the same time, and in fact, we think you should. By querying one agent exclusively at a time, you are limiting yourself because you have to wait for that agent to answer, and who knows how long that could take each agent. So yes, multiple agents at a time, though. Look at agency guidelines in terms of querying multiple agents at the same agency. It's usually a no.
Yeah, it's usually a no. BookEnds, you can query every agent, just never at the same time. So if you have a mystery, which both James and I represent, and James passes, you can then send it to me. And there have been plenty of instances within BookEnds, because we all have slightly different tastes, where one of us has passed on a book that another one then offered on later.
Yes, it just happened to me.
Yeah. I was going to, I know this question is going to come up, so I'm going to preempt it. Yes, it's okay to query multiple agents at the same time. The next question is going to be, how many should you query at a time? That's entirely up to you.
Yes, whatever feels organic for you.
Yeah, keep a spreadsheet, manage it, make sure you feel like things are happening. If you've got 10 out there and you're not getting any traction on them, You can maybe rework your query or send out 10 more, but there's no right answer to that. It's whatever feels comfortable to you. And I would suspect that a lot of authors start out really slow, and then when they get more comfortable with it, pick up momentum. That's fine too.
Yeah, which, it's like putting your feet in the water and working your way in. It's normal.
Exactly. Should we talk
in-person pitching?
Yes, in-person pitching conferences.
Yeah, so usually when you attend a conference, there will be pitch sessions where agents will sit down at tables and you'll walk in and you'll be able to sit down with them for 5-10 minutes and pitch your book.
And I don't know if anybody's ever done this. Raise your hand if you've ever done a conference pitch session, and how nerve-wracking I know it is for authors.
It's nerve-wracking for us too, I'm not gonna lie.
James, everything.
Well, not you. Everything is nerve-wracking. So anyway.
Yeah, so usually you're in a room. Typically you have like 10 minutes with an agent. You sit down with them, you pitch your book. Every agent handles it differently. Some might want a conversation, some just want to hear your book. There's all sorts of ways that people do it. There's some other pitch sessions where it's more 3 minutes and it's a speed pitching. It's like, if anybody's ever done speed dating, it is speed dating for your manuscript.
Yeah, with more hurtful rejection.
Maybe, it depends. Anyway, so that's what a pitch session is. Your pitch for these pitch sessions, I think they're hard.
Well, you have to, I mean, again, reading and speaking are two very different things, and listening, you have to really engage your listener. And I think the best way to do it is to treat it like a conversation.
Yeah.
Because if you're going in and you have your query letter as a guide, but then you start reading straight from it, I'm still listening, but am I as engaged as if you were looking at me and you were talking with me and you were, sort of posing questions and like engaging me in conversation with your book, which is hard, and which is why we say querying is sometimes easier.
Well, I mean, I always sort of compare it to when you read a book and somebody asks you what it's about. And I mean, or you ask somebody what a book is about. We all want to know because we're all looking for something new to read. But after 3 sentences, we're like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
The same is true of agents in a pitch session. Like, I want to know what your book is about, but I really don't want to sit here for 5 minutes and have you talk at me about your book.
Yeah, so you definitely want to come in with like that quick elevator pitch, but have a little bit more information that you can give. Yeah. And then, I mean, one of the things I do in every pitch session is ask questions. Where do you see it on shelves? Who would you compare it to? So you really want to have all of those questions answered in your head and ready to answer in person.
Yeah, I mean, I do the same thing. And I think it's similar to the query. You want to have your title, your word count, your genre. If you have comp titles, this is definitely a good time for comp titles.
Yes.
And then you really want to focus on the hook. What's the big selling point of the book? The comp titles are helpful to that, but I only think you have like 2-3 sentences, And then I also think be ready with questions. Is this the kind of book that you tend to gravitate towards? Can you tell me a little bit about the market today? I'm writing whatever genre. What's the market for that like? Take the time. I think the best thing about a pitch session is that you get one-on-one with an agent, which is very rare in the world. So take the time to get to know the agent and use that to say, oh, maybe this isn't somebody I want to work with anyway.
And also, I mean, it is a pitch session and everybody going into it recognizes it's a pitch session. But once you pitch your book and you have that leftover time, I think now is the perfect time to start asking some publishing questions if you have them. Yeah. If you're wondering what it's like to get an illustrator, how does the publisher match an illustrator? How long does it take from book to shelf for an adult novel? Like all of those questions that you might have, I'm just making them up off the top of my head.
Well, or just ask personal questions like, are you enjoying your trip? Where are you from? Are you from, are you an agent who is from New York? Are you from somewhere else? I mean, getting to know the person, I think, is really beneficial. So doing something like that can be useful for you.
Yes.
So.
Right. So not everybody has the opportunity to attend a conference in person. They are, rather expensive at times, or they are dates we can't make, or whatever the reason is. But there are a
Or we
ton.
can't pick our houses.
Yeah, the pandemic. But there are a ton of online Twitter pitch events, and there's only more cropping up every day, week, month.
Yeah.
So Jessica, what is the benefit of an online pitch event?
I don't know. I find online pitch events to be a little stressful. So we have definitely all participated in online pitch events, and there's some I think that are more popular than others, and have some of the older ones have better reputations than others. They've been around, they have a reputation for authors getting snapped up. But at the end of the day, so I think editors and agents tend to go into an online pitch event sort of hungry. And there is an advantage to having editors see your pitch, and then they will sort of track it and reach out to the agent. So we've had situations like that where we took someone on from an online pitch, and then editors got in touch and said, I saw you signed this person. I definitely want to see that book. I think that's the biggest advantage for an online pitch, is sort of the number of eyes you get on it.
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt. I just think it's one of those things, you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your book out there, you're getting sort of a feeler from the community. Who is, monitoring that hashtag, and you're getting opinions from other people and praise, and it does make you feel good, but you're really getting your book out there and you're floating it by your potential audience.
So, but I would say a couple of things. One is that if you don't get any likes, it's fine, because you're still querying, because just because you did the online pitch event doesn't mean you stopped querying.
And if you didn't get likes, it's not necessarily your book's fault, your pitch's fault. Remember, algorithms are a thing. They are tricky. They are terrible. They are pesky and annoying.
Yeah, and like we said, there are days, I don't do most online pitch events because I don't have a full day to be on Twitter tracking that. I have a million other things I'm doing, and that doesn't, what I hope is that those people are querying me as well, and then I can get to them that way. So that's the biggest thing for me about the online pitch event. You also only have, whatever it is, 140 characters. And that's super tricky, because you have to condense your blurb to a tagline, basically. And what appeals to some might not appeal to some. What appeals to me might not appeal to James in those characters, even though we might both love the book. But the way you pitch it and the key points you pull out might grab my attention more than they would grab his, or vice versa.
Well, that is another benefit too. So when you query or you're pitching, you really got that one shot, right? But when you're doing these online pitch events, you have the opportunity to pitch each book, sometimes up to 6 times. So you have the room to play with your pitch and experiment different things and see what people really resonate to.
For me, one of the other reasons I don't do it is that I've found that consistently I ended up liking books that I've already gotten queried. So then it
happens to you every single
time. A second time, and I'm like, well, now that I really, because I don't necessarily remember the author's name, and the pitch doesn't click like the query did, but I'll get the query and I'm like, ow, I've already seen this. So that is also one of the reasons that I find that I'm spending all this time in the pitch event, and the books I'm liking, I've already seen. So it's not necessarily that advantageous.
Right. And going back to the editor thing, just to answer Ebony's question, it is great if you're getting a ton of editor likes. It is something to sort of pack into your query. This so-and-so liked my query during the PB pitch or whatever it was. So I think it's worth it. And that's one of the benefits, that you just get the whole community's eyes on it at the same time. And it just helps you gauge interest. So definitely include it if you have it. Yeah,
but I would definitely really say that any of these you're doing, always be querying. Yes. Because again, the querying is your control. So if there are agents that you have interested in who didn't like your online pitch or who weren't at the conference, don't rule them out. Really be like, I still want that person. I still want James to see my book, even if he didn't like my pitch, because there could be a million reasons why he didn't like your pitch, and it doesn't mean he didn't like it. It just means he didn't click the like button.
Yeah.
And most likely didn't see it.
And like Beck Erickson says, ABQ, always be querying.
I like that.
So I do want to quickly add in, I don't think there are any illustrators on the webinar with us today, but I'm sure there will be some illustrators who see this on YouTube. Social media is huge for illustrators. It's where I found my illustrator client. She posts wonderful photos of her work on Instagram, and she uses all the hashtags, and she really engages there and on Twitter. So using social media for the illustrators, agents are looking.
We have an illustrator. We have an illustrator.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Hi, Nancy. Yeah, so definitely you want to be using Instagram and Twitter. I'm always looking at hashtag kidlit art or illustration or illustrators of Instagram. Posting your work there, it's kind of just like that extra bonus for your querying. And it's just going to get more eyes on you, sort of in the same way a Twitter pitch event does, but constantly, year-round, always, whenever you feel like it.
Right.
So that's probably my best tip. Have that engagement, because editors are looking too. And when they're looking for someone to illustrate their book, they're going straight to those hashtags. So,
yep.
Okay, so we're about halfway through, Jessica. We made it. Is your mouth dry? Do you need a drink?
There's a lot of questions.
I know. So we're going to turn to our Q&A. We've got about a half hour to answer all of your questions. And luckily, our intern slash moderator, Umaima, has been compiling them all for us. So we're just going to start working our way through.
Yes.
If you have any more, please do keep adding them into the chat, and Umaima will continue collecting.
There was one question that was private, so I will not out you, but I think it's something people might be interested in hearing, which is, do we or would we ever do Zoom pitch events? James and I absolutely will not. We discussed this in March because we both had quite a few conferences that we were scheduled to do this year that have all been canceled. I'm going to be honest with you. I despise pitch events. They are the one thing I dislike most about the conferences. I like to hang out with the authors, get to know people. I feel that I am at the conference, I am open to queries, so the pitch event is somewhat redundant. I would rather sit at a meal with you, get to know you, hear about your book in a casual way that I can be constructive and not in the stress of a pitch event. So I feel like this that we're doing, talking to you and teaching what we know and answering your questions, is far more productive than an hour of you just pitching at us, one person after another. So no, we won't do them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, we do it. We like to immerse ourselves into the community, and making ourselves available only for you to pitch us when you can query us for free anyway. It's not the way we want to spend our time. So we'll do this instead and query us whenever you please for a project that suits our open genres. We're happy to take a look at it. And we're both pretty on top of them, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, we're both pretty responsive and quick to respond on our queries. So
yes, we won't make you wait forever.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start going through the questions, shall we?
Yeah, we got a lot of them.
We do.
Holy moly.
Questions.
Okay, so the first one's for you. Go for it.
The first one is for me about my current MSWL besides chickens. Yeah, I work a ton in picture books mostly, and I'm really looking to grow the adult fiction side of my list. I'd love to find some adult mysteries, upmarket fiction, something like if you've read, Taylor Jenkins Reid or Where the Crawdads Sing, stuff like that. I just read Long Bright River by Liz Moore, so something like really great writing, but with a mystery that carries you through all the way. I would love to see it. But what about you, Jessica? What are you looking for?
Well, first of all, can you explain the chickens? Because not everybody here knows about your obsession with chickens.
Okay, so I went to Hawaii a couple of years ago, and if anybody's ever been to Kauai, you'll know chickens are literally everywhere. And everybody thought they were annoying, but I thought they were great. And then, I don't know, word just started to get out to BookEnds, to Twitter, and now I have a thing for chickens. Once something hits social media, you kind of...
Word started to get out, like you weren't the one spreading that.
I didn't say that I wasn't the one spreading it. I just said
okay. I just wanted clarity on that.
Yeah, it got out. I'm not naming names, but now I am labeled the chicken guy. Whatever. I will take it.
only represent adult fiction and nonfiction. I am not your kids person. My genres are literary and upmarket fiction, all areas of mystery, suspense, thriller, and women's fiction. I think that's everything for fiction. I am really focused 100% right now because I have sort of the freedom of having a pretty full list. So my main focus right now is finding own voices, finding marginalized voices. I would like to see more Black authors in all of my genres. And I think that the romance world and the YA world is doing a good job at bringing non-white voices, non-straight cisgender voices in, but we are really still lacking in mystery, suspense, and thriller. In women's fiction, I mean, I would love to see women's fiction, a story of a mom or somebody on an adventure or something like that, that's not another white woman. So that's really one of my focuses right now. I never remember. I can never remember what I just read. But James and I do videos on YouTube of what we just read, and that's been really great. Well, it's fun. It's my favorite video to make, actually. But we really talk about the books we just read and why that book is our MSWL. So it's a fun way to learn more about the books that we're falling in love with and why we want to see something similar on our list.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're querying, if you received a rejection, but then feedback on your query from one of, say, the BookEnds agents, what is a decent amount of time between rejection and sending an updated query?
I would say do the work on the query. First, I don't know that I would say if you send it back within a day or two, I think that you haven't paid attention. But then again, I rejected a query, I think it was yesterday or today, and the person resent the revised query and I instantly requested.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because the first query said nothing about the book. And I said, your query says nothing about the book. And they sent the new query and I was like, oh, this is a book I want to read.
Yeah, just make it clear you've done the work.
But if you have been working on your query, you thought it was working, you have everything we already talked about, and you get something about the query's not working, what I would suggest is take a look at the query. But if you're really struggling with the query, you might also want to take a look at the book. Is the query not working because there are those sort of big elements missing in the book that aren't allowing you to target the query towards? And this is why I say write the query, because there is a possibility that your book has gone off track and you don't have that big book or that big hit that you want to sell the book with.
Yeah, I agree. So comp titles, should you use comp titles? Yeah, we talk about this a lot. Comp titles, what are they? And are they helpful? Are they harmful? What can you constitute as a comp title? So it's going to be a little mini talk, but I think it's a necessary one, especially if we're doing a talk on queries.
For those who don't know, comp titles are comparative titles. Yeah. And they don't have to be just books. They could be TV shows, they could be movies. What they show is who the market is for your book. So are they people who are watching Schitt's Creek, or are they people who are watching, I don't know.
He doesn't watch TV. Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. You know, are they people reading Long Bright River, or are they people reading?
Oh my God, all adults here. Emma Straub. You're having trouble today.
I am. I'm tired. Anyway, so that's what a comp title is. For books, it's really like where on the bookshelf is your book more or less going. Can they be helpful? They're absolutely helpful. Can they be harmful?
Yes. I mean, you run the risk of comping something that I don't like. You run the risk of comping inaccurately and getting my hopes up and letting them fall, or vice versa. But I also think that your book will stand for itself at a certain point. So you can go crazy over them, you could feel confident in them, or you can choose not to include them.
I would say don't include them if you're reaching. You know, if sure. and you know, Pride and Prejudice and Harry Potter and, you know, are not comp titles. They're way too old. Your comp title should be something that's been done in the past couple years.
Yeah.
You know, as popular as Friends is, comping a book to Friends feels a little dated right now. So I would find something that's current, definitely.
Within the last, like you said, 5 years. I think
Yeah.
it's important.
I would even shoot for 3.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Okay, so moving on with the rejections. Hold on, I lost my question.
Having written for an online magazine or your blog good to list as experience? Yes. Anything you've been writing, list as experience. Nobody's going to look at it and go, oh, it's only that. We just like to see that you're writing and you're doing things. And if you're not writing other than your book, that's fine too. We really don't, unless it's nonfiction where I need an author platform, we really don't judge you by your bio. It just allows us to get to know you a little better.
Yes. So if you're not receiving feedback on your query, how do I know if my query is the problem or if they just don't like my writing?
You don't?
Yeah. I would say if you've gotten all, form rejections on your query letter, it could be your query. Try a new query.
But it could also be your book. It could be that the book you're querying isn't different enough. I mean, I would say that 90% of the time or so, the query is fine. It's just that the book you're querying doesn't feel special enough. It doesn't feel like something that I can take to somebody and go, I have a debut author and this book sounds so different from everything else. And that's what's really important.
Yes. How does the blurb format differ for a board book? That's a good question. I find that they're just shorter. The way a board book is much shorter, it's probably going to be shorter than your picture book query. The concepts are very simple. Just getting across the concept, letting me know if it's in rhyme or not, maybe if it teaches the reader something. But I think it can be very short and it's okay if it's short.
Yeah.
So we answered comp title questions. Are agents turned off by first-time authors querying the first book in a series?
Not at all. I would not say it's your first book.
It's just not necessary.
Well, I always feel like when you say it's your first book, it means that you have never even written something that's back in the files. So I just would not say it's your first book. I would not say it's your 20th book. I would just say it's your book.
Yes.
Sorry. What I would also, since you mentioned series, this is something that we've talked about before too. If you're writing a series, definitely mention your query that you envision it as the first in the series. And since you're querying that book, you are now writing your next book. Don't make it the next book in the series. Because if the first book doesn't sell, you've then written a second book that won't likely sell. So our advice is always write the first book, sell that series, and start something completely new because you can always go back to the series.
Yes, and for my picture book people, this is extra important because I know everybody loves their picture book character and wants to write a long series with them, but they're hard. So make sure that you're diversifying what's in your submission package. I wouldn't want to see 4 books in your submission package, all the same series.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, so is it acceptable to resubmit to an agent or agency after I've done a major rewrite? Yes, I think so.
It is for us. Not all agents want to see a rewrite. You will have to requery as if it's, something brand new, and you'll have to tell them that they've seen it before and that you've done a major rewrite. What I would say is only do it once. You can only resubmit once unless you are given a revise and resubmit. I would also say that only allow yourself to do it once, and then it's time for you to take what you've learned and move on to your next book. I worry about authors who it seems have been submitting only one book for years because
it shows us that you haven't moved on yet.
Yeah. And that I wonder if you've grown. And I also think we all grow more from taking what we've learned to the next thing rather than keep trying to rebuild. Should we use our food reference?
You have to. I mean,
you can only do so much with the cake batter. After a while, it's just done and it's either going to work or it's not. So at some point you have to move on and make another cake. Writing a book is the same thing. After a while, you keep fiddling with it and you're going to not have a book that works. You're going to have fiddled it to death.
Yes. Is there a good place to find agents of color? There is. There's actually a Twitter page and website, I think even an Instagram handle called POC in Publishing. I urge everyone to check it out. It's very important that we are uplifting our agents of color and our editors of color as well. And if you're interested in querying them, please do. Follow their submission guidelines, though. How advantageous is a history of prior publication? I would say very. If I see it in a query, I'm interested. I want to see what you're working on next. If you've been published, I'm interested.
Yeah.
If you get a lot, we answered this one. Sorry, Ebony, I think that was you. Say an agent takes me on as a picture book writer, but I don't see that she represents all the genres for which I have manuscripts. Is there a possibility the agent could rep anyway? This is a conversation to have with the agent, I think. It's a common question because especially picture book writers, a lot of them write outside of their genre as well. I don't think you have to query an agent that represents everything you do, but it is a conversation to have with them. There are ways around that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even try to find the person who represents everything you write, because you're just going to limit yourself. And we don't need to limit ourselves more than we already do. I also think that as your career evolves, whether you're writing different genres within picture books, for example, or different genres across the board, as your writing evolves, as you build a career, you're going to find that you're not going to write everything. You know, you might decide that, you know, you're writing mysteries and those children's books that you always thought you were going to go back to are now not something you're going to go back to because you're building a career in adults and maybe you don't want to. So what I would do is, well, you want to have sort of a big picture plan and goals. Don't narrow yourself because of them, because, you know, I look at my own career and it didn't necessarily take the path that I thought it was going to take 20 some years ago. But had I narrowed it down and said, this is what I decided I was doing and this is the only thing I'm going to do, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yes. Is it acceptable to query works in progress? No, they should be final manuscripts only. It's going to change. So you want to make sure you're sending an agent your final best work.
And by final, we mean it's been revised, edited, you are done with it, and you've started your next book. You really need to be, like I like to say, you really need to be so sick of that book, you never want to see it again, and it's time to send it out. It's time to get it into somebody else's hands.
Pretty much. Do writers have any input in who their illustrator could be? Input, yes. Final say, no. So most editors will send along a short list of illustrators they're looking at, ask for your opinions. Usually, in my experience, the editor will and the agent and the author will all come to an agreement on who they like the most, and that will be the first choice. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but the publisher will have final say. But
you have found that most of the time, authors are happy.
Yes, I would. It's very, in my experience, it's very rare that an author was unhappy. But again, it could happen. It does happen. Yeah. So I'm not going to say it doesn't. This is a good one. We talk about it a lot. I think we did a couple videos on it. What is the best time of year to query? And what do you think about querying right now with the current state of our country?
God, I need good books.
Yes. I don't believe there's.
I need good books.
Yeah. And I don't believe there is a good time of year to query. I think if an agent's open, that means they're looking for queries. They're going to respond to you when they respond to you. I don't buy into the whole don't query in August thing. Agents are still reading queries in August. Historically, they've been some of BookEnds' biggest months for new clients, and sales, and everything.
I would say the only time that we maybe put down the querying and take a break is between United States Thanksgiving, so the end of November through beginning of January, only because nobody's reading their queries. Everybody's wrapping up for the year, doing their holiday shopping, whatever it is they're doing. And I think even you as an author, that's a good time to take a break, to reevaluate, to plan your goals for the next year, and then to hit it hard in January.
Yeah, and also just
doing it, but I do think that if I'm going to tell you not to query during any time, that would be the only time I'd say.
Yeah, and it's important to just, rejuvenate, like take that break and enjoy your friends and family and come back to it refreshed.
And what I would say about the current state of the country, well, I'm not actually going to comment on the current state of the country. We'll have thoughts on that. What I would say about querying right now is we have been consistently taking on new clients since March. We have been selling books, and in fact, this June, we are back up to last year's numbers. So we definitely saw a drop, but not what you would expect. And like I said, we are putting out submissions, we are making sales, we are taking on new clients. And we have not slowed down in that, in what we can control anyway, which is taking on the new clients.
Yes.
Publishing must go on. We all need books. And next year we're going to need books. And if we stop buying now, we won't have anything to publish in a year.
And let's face it, we might not have TV if we do a second wave of this, and we're going to need books. Hollywood is closed for business.
True. At least writers can write. Actors can't act. Well, they
can. Okay. We've got time for a few more questions. So I was told not to have a rhetorical question in my query. What is your thought?
Don't have a rhetorical question in your query.
Yeah, I would. If I can answer no to one of your rhetorical questions, you kind of lost me.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered about this? No, I haven't. Moving on.
That's true.
So I wouldn't. I think there's more creative ways to hook me in.
Right.
Is it appropriate to mention if you requested a full of a previous manuscript when querying? I think so. Letting me know that I've previously been interested in your work, I might not remember, so reminding me and jogging my memory is always smart and kind to do.
I don't know that Emima got this one on our list, so I want to answer Ebony's question here because I feel like it's a really important one. Ebony asks, as a Black woman querying, what do you think are important questions specific to being a woman of color that I should ask? I've been hearing about the pay gaps and would love to ask a potential agent how they would advocate for me. I think that is such a good question, and it's a conversation I recently had with a new client. And I really appreciated her honesty in asking me how I would handle certain situations that she would experience as a Black woman, and how I would advocate for her. And I think you just ask. You just really ask. And I think when an agent offers representation, that's your opportunity to hopefully you get, if you're in a situation where you get multiple offers of representation, asking those hard questions that matter to you are a really great way to gauge whether or not that agent is right for you. And it doesn't mean that you know ahead of time what their answer should be, but I think it's how they react to the question, how they answer it, and how comfortable you are with the way they answered it and the conversation that you two can have together, which shows you probably more than anything whether that's the right fit for you. So I think that's a really good question for any author of color, also authors in any other marginalized community, an LGBTQ author who, might have some questions about how an agent might advocate for them. Because, let's be honest, most of us are white. We're hoping to change that, but that's where we are right now.
Right, and it's our job to advocate, and we should be able to advocate for everyone and make sure that we're doing our best to do that, even if it takes more work out of us. So
right.
Putting us on the spot, it's your right to do.
And I think that's the time to do it, to be honest, whether it's about advocacy or anything else, that it's better to ask those hard-hitting questions before you sign with an agent than learn later that you signed with the wrong agent because maybe those questions made you too nervous. And you don't need to do it on the call. If it's something you're uncomfortable verbalizing, feel free to follow up with the agent, say, thanks for the phone call. I'm emailing a few additional questions. If that makes you more comfortable, the call doesn't have to be everything. There can be an email follow-up that can happen too. And that also, again, gives you a good opportunity to see how the agent responds to everything.
Yes, agreed. Thank you for answering that one. I did miss it.
Okay. We have a lot of questions here.
We have a lot, but we've got a bit more time.
This is a good one too. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. If I've written an own voice novel, and for those who don't know what own voices means, you should. Own voices means that you are a member of the marginalized community that you are writing about. So, you are writing about your own community, basically. But I have to read your question. If I've written an own voice novel, how should I include that information in the query without it seeming like I'm saying, pick me, I'm brown? I mean, you could say that, I guess. I think you can just say this is an own voices novel. I'll be honest. The only time why I care about knowing Own Voices novel is because I get a lot of novels from white people, and when I go to read the book and they're writing about a member of the marginalized community, all of a sudden a red flag goes up because there's something not right in that manuscript, and I go to Google the person. I don't feel that as a member of the marginalized community, you need to tell me. And especially for our LGBTQ writers who may not be ready to come out, you don't have to, you know? And that's a very important thing, that no agent should force you to come out if you don't want to. That's your choice. Nobody else can tell you to. You know, I mean, hell, why wouldn't you say pick me, go for it. You know, if you think that, you know, if you want to tell people that your book is Own Voices, then go for it and tell them. If you don't, you don't have to. That's the best I can say. I hope that answered your question, but I don't think there's anything wrong with saying title of book is word count in Own Voices historical mystery and Own Voices science fiction. It could just be as simple as the one line in there.
Would you advise a phone call with an agent who offers before signing with that agent?
Oh.
Yes.
If they won't have a phone call, don't sign with them.
Yes, you should. The reasoning is simple in that you should be able to get on a phone call and hear from them and hear their excitement and hear their plans and strategies and all of that. There's something that doesn't convey in an email all the time, and we want, as a writer, I would want to hear it, and I would want to know it's for real and I can trust it. And I think it goes a long way. So yes.
You also want to
Sorry.
You also want to know if you're comfortable taking this person on as your business partner and paying them.
Yeah, do you click? Anybody can click over email, but do you click when you get on the phone and you're having a conversation?
Yeah, and I would add to that, that because I just want to make it clear that when you get an offer of representation, and all of this is found in various places, but we definitely did a YouTube on this, that is your time to get as many offers of representation as possible. That means any agents who are reading your material or even have your queries who you think you would like to represent you, contact them, let them know you have an offer, and get on the phone with as many of them as you can, not at once because that would be weird, but as many of them as you can. And if they're offering, get on the phone and ask them questions. And if somebody said something that you didn't think to ask an earlier agent, set up another call with the earlier agent and ask them those questions. This is a thundersome call. This is your time. You're in charge. You're hiring this person to be your business partner. This is your time to really not be afraid.
Yes. How long should one wait to nudge an agent / publisher if they have your full manuscript? This is something that I think every querying writer should know. Go by their guidelines on the website.
Yeah, and if they don't have any, I would say 12 weeks, which is about that's what our longest is. We're, I think, 8 to 12 weeks. I know people go longer. I know there are times when we all go longer, but I would say after 12 weeks. If you just need a blanket, when should I nudge?
Is it okay to comp a series or a title that the agent represents? Sure, why not?
Yeah, just make sure it's actually there.
Yeah, it shows me you know my list, and it shows me that you'd fit in with my list. So yeah, for sure.
If you don't know, if you go to the website and you're looking to comp a title and you haven't read it, don't do it.
Yeah, I know that book very well.
There were years back, we used to keep our submissions on our website, and I would have people comp books that never sold.
Oh.
So yeah. So make sure that you actually know the book. Don't just randomly comp it.
Yeah. Oh, I just shook my whole desk. This is a great question, Jessica. What do you think? Is Publishers Marketplace worth the subscription fee for querying authors? It's a tough one.
It's $20 a month, right? $25 a month. I mean, I suppose I mean, it can add up. That's $250 a year. I don't, I mean, I think it's useful, but it's useful to see what's selling, but don't they still have, you have to be careful about splitting the fee. They will track that. Don't they still have the free newsletter that lists some of the deals?
I believe so. Publisher's Lunch, right? Does it?
Right. So if they still have the free version of Publisher's Lunch, that's probably enough.
And I will also say it does add up. It's expensive, and I don't feel that any author should have to spend that money that they're not getting back necessarily. I think that if you're on Twitter and you're engaged in the community, a lot of the information that's on there you will find for free.
Yeah, I would agree.
More work.
And I think if you're going to find a cost, I would say Query Tracker might be better than Publishers Marketplace. The other thing to notice about Publishers Marketplace is not all agents report their deals. So you're going to miss agents completely and think they're not selling anything when in fact they just don't report them.
Right, but most agents have a Twitter and all agents have a website, and that's free and easy for you to find. Yeah,
I would say if you're splitting what you're going to invest in, I mean, you guys can talk amongst yourself. I think Query Tracker probably, because you get insights from other authors about agents, that's probably better, but I'm not talk to other authors probably better.
Time for a few more, you think?
Yeah, I got a question here. Would I consider representing picture books if you like an adult novel? You don't want me representing your picture book. I don't have the contacts. I don't follow the market. I can't sort of give you ideas. I mean, I probably could, but I would not be the best picture book agent for you. And that is something to consider, is we pick what we represent based on a level of expertise that doesn't just go to how we can submit it. It goes to the contracts. It goes to how we can edit your book. It goes to our knowledge of the market. I don't have all of that for picture books, so no.
This is a great question, one that we actually just filmed our video on, what was it, last week? If an editor wants to acquire a manuscript before you can get an agent, should I hire an agent before saying yes to an agent?
Yes.
You're asking agents, and we will say yes all the time. Any editor worth their salt making an offer of publication is going to not only support, but give you the time you need to find an agent, and maybe even make some recommendations for you on trustworthy agents that are reputable. So yeah.
I was an editor for a long time, and it was frustrating to me when an author wouldn't get an agent, because usually things would break down because negotiating is not fun, and an author doesn't always understand the process, so that wouldn't always work out so well. Also, I would know that the author wasn't working in their best interest when it came to the contract, and there was nothing I could do about it. So an agent will earn their 15% back.
Tenfold.
Even if it doesn't show up in the advance, there are things in that contract that are worth the 15%.
Yes. As a writer from the Caribbean, should I state in my bio where I am from? I know that some agencies are hesitant to work with writers outside of the US/Canada/UK. I don't think you have to if you don't want to. I think if you state Caribbean, that's fine. Or if you state that you're not in the US, or you don't even have to state that. I think most agents will accept clients outside of the US/Canada/UK. It really doesn't take much.
I don't know. I would be personally excited to get a query from somebody from the Caribbean. So, or
really the only thing that changes
else in the world. So,
yeah. The only thing that changes for us is the time zone, which is, it changes.
Yeah. I mean, what I try not to overthink it. No matter what you do, somebody is going to reject you for it. And, so try not to, you're not going to appeal to all agents. And frankly, you don't want to. You're not going to appeal to all readers. You're not going to appeal to all reviewers, and the minute you try to, your work will suffer. So if there's an agency that won't take you on because you're from the Caribbean, then they're not the right agency for you. I do think I do believe now most agents will take on authors from anywhere in the world, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Okay, we've got two more, Jessica. The first one, is there a specific Twitter/publisher/agent we should follow besides Book Friends? I think this is a great question, and I think it varies by your genre and your writing community. I think that everybody in picture books wants to follow Tara Lazar, Josh Funk, picture book agents, Brian Gelrain, who's doing PV Spotlight, Justin Colon. Those are the big names on Twitter that are really doing a lot to support that community. But I think it changes by the genre. And once you start to make your way into the online community, these people will crop up, and it's just a follow. So yes, I think there are specific people, but we could list dozens of them. It's just a matter of getting into your community.
Yeah, and I think you play with it. You follow somebody, you unfollow them, you mute them, you check them out, you see who's retweeting. I mean, I think it just happens because you're on there, as long as you like to be on there. You don't have to be on Twitter either.
Yes, and I know this is a good question for you because it gets to you, but it's our last one of the day too. What are your thoughts on professional editorial services to help you put out the strongest version of your book? I heard that not all agents are editorial, and editors today will only take on books that do not require as much work.
If that's something you really want to do and feel you need to do, you can. I don't know. I think what I would do is wait to see. Because if you hire an editorial service and then you do have an editor who does a lot of work, and that editor is now undoing everything the editorial service, I've also seen a lot of editorial services that are out of touch. I've seen a lot of manuscripts that the editorial service had them do something, and when I spoke to the author about it, I realized that maybe they were better off before hiring the editor. I mean, yes, it's hard to sell a book, but I also think if you're going to hire an editor, hire somebody because they're going to teach you to be a stronger writer, not because they're always going to edit your book. But then also commit to the fact that if you're hiring somebody, you may need to always hire somebody. And is that, as your career grows, if that's the person that's helping you get to a point, yes, I think that's a good point. Find a good critique group.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about publishing and having a career as writing is that you're growing. And does someone telling you how to fix your book help you grow? I think it's Neil Gaiman that says whoever tells you exactly what's wrong with your book is wrong, but whoever tells you something's not working for them, you should listen to them. So really, you want people surrounding you that are going to help you grow and change and evolve as a writer. And it might be an editor, it might not, but find a good critique group is right. Those people that are in the trenches with you, supporting you as you go, are super important.
And I would always also add, be prepared to dump your critique group.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It feels like a breakup, but you'll get over it. You'll still be friends.
I see a lot of authors who are stuck, and they're like, oh, but I love my critique group. And I'm like, well, you love them, but now that you've reached this point, are they still beneficial to you? So whatever you find, they may be the greatest people on earth, but if you're not feeling challenged and walking out of every critique session sweating a little, then they may no longer be the best critique group for you.
Yeah, well put.
So.
Okay, well, I think this went wonderfully. I was really nervous Zoom was going to not cooperate, especially with my terrible Wi-Fi over here, but it went really well. And
yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope.
Thank you for attending.
Yeah, I think we ended up with 54 people, so that's exciting.
Yes, and if there's any topics that you think you'd love to see more of these webinars on, please do let us know, whether it's here on Twitter or, Instagram, wherever you find us. But we really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us, and we hope to do it again soon.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.